Hey, just hopping on to record this podcast. We are coming up on Mother's Day weekend, and I wanted to just share some thoughts on mothers. I lost my mother in 2020, August 3rd, 2020, and I miss her dearly. But what I also miss is are the old school mothers, the mothers from back in the day. I'm a school teacher, and the parents today are very, very different from the way my parents were. If you're a part of Generation X, that means you're in your early 50s, probably early 50s, late 50s, but we're in the same age range, Generation X. And our parents were, like my dad's in his 80s. And so, had my mom lived, she would be also in her late 80s. And so, our parents back in the day were from a combination of the last generation or the silent generation. And then some people I know, parents are baby boomers. But that just whole generation there, like my dad lived through the Depression. My parents lived through the Depression. So they've experienced things that we have not ever experienced in modern life. They didn't have technology and all that stuff. But what they did have was old school qualities and values. And I'm not jumping on any conservative bandwagon, to say the least. However, there is a lack of some of these values and some of these conservative ways of living in today's parenting. And I'm not a parent, so let me disclaimer right there. I am not a parent. I am a child-free Black woman. However, some of the things that I missed from parenting and seeing parents do is things that my mother used to help me do is figure out, how to dress, how to wear my hair. Did I like it all the time? No, I didn't. But she taught me all those things, all those basic things. How to wear stockings, how to wear undergarments, those shapers. Now they call them, Spanx and all that, but those girdles and all those things like that, shapewear. She taught me, manners. My mother taught me how to write. She taught me how to write letters. Writing letters was very important to my mother. Writing thank you cards and greeting cards was very, very important. In addition to the schooling I got in school, my mother also made sure I spoke correctly, like correct language. I've been reading a book recently for a book club called Good Dirt. And one of the things that one of the parents talks to her daughter about, they had a flashback in the book to when the main character was a teenager or a young girl. And her mom explained that their grandmother was very adamant about them using the English language correctly, especially from a Black perspective back in the day. You never want anyone to think that you do not know how to use the English language correctly. And so my mom was very much like that. Like, she would correct you, like in mid-sentence. If you said something wrong, if you said, can I go to the bathroom? She'd say it 10 times, may I? And you're sitting there like, what? What are we doing here? May I? And then you're like, oh, she wants to be, in your head, you're like, she wants me to say may I? And then you correct yourself. And so things like that, are things that my mother would do, right? Like I said, writing letters, writing cards. To this day, I try to write thank you cards for the things that I, gifts and things that I get. Because I know she'd be looking over my shoulder like, hey, did you write that card to Aunt so-and-so? And those are things, I'd be hard-pressed to find a kid nowadays who knows how to write a thank you card or a letter. Just a letter with dear so-and-so, the body of the letter, and then a salutation. I'd be hard-pressed for them to know what a salutation is. Let's just be clear. I work in elementary school. I'm not sure they know what that is. And I know some teachers teach that, but I'm not sure that any of them have ever written a letter to anyone or sent a card to anyone. Because everything's so electronic now. Everything's so text-based. Everything's so abbreviated that spelling and writing is like something that is a challenge for a lot of our kids nowadays. And so I valued that in my mother and something that she valued. And I still to this day value that. So I think that's why I'm so good with words and writing. And I've always been good with words and writing. And so I thank my mother for that. And I thank all the old school mothers. The other thing that old school mothers who raised kids in the 70s and 80s, one thing they were good at was also how to regulate your behavior. They didn't play. So if you can witness to that, leave a comment and witness how your mother and father did not play back in the day, or grandmother, how they didn't play. They didn't tolerate bad behavior. They didn't tolerate any of the things that some of these kids get away with now. They didn't tolerate if the teacher called them for something, you better be on fire. If the teacher had to call them while they was at work or after school or during the parent-teacher conference and they said something that you did, they wasn't going to go off on the teacher. They was going to sit and listen. Okay, all right. Then when you get home, you better believe it. You was going to get it. Okay, you was going to get in trouble. Our parents were very good at the follow-up and the follow-through. You know, they didn't threaten to say, oh, you're going to get it later and then never do it like some of these parents nowadays do. They followed through. So whether it was punishment or a whipping or things taken away, which happened. You know, if you grew up during the 70s, 80s like I did, you were put on punishment. You had things taken away. We didn't have all these electronics and things now like the kids have. But believe me, parents found ways to take things away. We had rotary phones or landline phones, if you will, and they would take that away. It wasn't a cell phone that you could physically take away from a child that these kids now have a whole fit and a half if you take it away. But they could take a landline. That's how good parents were back in the day. That's how good mothers were back in the day. They could take away a landline phone that's physically still there and take away your privileges. And you're like, how the heck did they do that? But in your mind, this is how scared you were of disappointing your parents. The phone was there, but you didn't use it. It was there in your face. That's the miracle of the magic that mothers back in the day had, of the skill set that they had. They were good at disseminating punishment. They would consult one another. Like I disliked a lot of times when my mother would consult with my aunt a couple times on how to punish me, get tips and tricks on stuff my aunt used with my cousin. I'm like, no, I don't need you to consult. I need you to just come up with your own punishment and let's deal with it here. But nah, she had to consult, outside consultant. And I don't think parents do that anymore. The outside consultancy of consulting other parents or even old school parents. How did you parent? A lot of parents nowadays, I just in witnessing and observing, they care more about their kids being friends with them or their kids liking them than they do about their kids' behavior and doing right in life. And when teachers tell your parents, when teachers are telling parents about their behavior and the parents don't really do anything about it at home and it just continues to manifest in the classroom and in school, that's a problem. And if you get anything out of this message for Mother's Day, if you're a younger parent, say if you're a millennial parent or a Gen Z parent, if you get anything out of this from a Gen Xer who is childless but had a mother who was from the old school, if you will, who had, to make sure I had home training, if you will. A lot of kids are lacking home training. And some of y'all young parents need to re-implement the home training concept. Teach your kids how to treat other people and talk to other people. Teach them their history, particularly if they're Black kids. Teach them their history and Black history and how they should carry themselves and how they should talk to other people, other kids their age, how they should talk to adults. Because some of them, the way they talk to adults and teachers, even the young age, I work with pre-K kids, even the young age, they talk to us like we somewhere on the street. And sometimes you got to catch yourself like, this is a 5-year-old talking to me like we grown. And parents, y'all got to stop talking to your kids like they grown. Stop letting them be all up in your business. Stop letting them be in the conversation. Back in the day, our mothers, our parents made sure there was a saying called stay out of grown folks' business. You sat and you listened. If you was a good kid, if you knew what you was doing, you sat and you listened to grown folks' business, but you didn't get in it. You didn't discuss it. You didn't talk about it. You just kind of sat and listened, like get all the, what they call now, the kids now call it getting the tea. You got the tea. And you kept that to yourself. Nowadays, these kids are all up in grown folks' business. They will comment on something a teacher or two teachers are saying in a minute. You're like, no one's talking to you.